unless you take the PPI all the way through on your research journey through to the funding application, you will not get the funding because funders are really focused on PPI engagement.
Welcome to the sOOPR podcast, designed for medical trainees looking to take time out of training for a clinical research fellowship in the UK. Each week, we'll bring you a 15-minute discussion with a leading expert in the UK medical research process, or from a successful research fellow sharing what they wish they'd known before they'd taken their time out. I'm your host, Nikhil Alawalia, and on behalf of the British Junior Cardiology Association and with support from the BHF Clinical Research Collaborative, we're proud to bring you this series. Great, so for today's episode, we're going to be looking at patient and public involvement, otherwise known as PPI. This is defined as research carried out with or by members of the public rather than to or for or about them. It's shown to improve the quality and impact of research, and so working in partnership has now become a prerequisite in health service research work in the UK. So for that reason, I'm very pleased to have Ms. Sarah Murray, who's chair of the British Heart Foundation and James Lind Alliance Public and Patient Initiative for the Priority Setting Partnership. She's also the chair of the NICOR Patient Representative Group and the lay representative on the Executive Society for Cardiothoracic Surgery. She's also a qualified solicitor in addition to her background. So thanks so much for taking the time to join us today, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. So can I start by asking a little bit about your background and how you got involved in PPI groups and this sort of work, because it's fascinating, but I don't know how people get into it.
It's a very roundabout way, but I started when my son was born, pretty much, because my son was born in Brussels with a congenital heart defect. And it became clear very early on that we had to get a second opinion. And the Belgian doctors were wonderful and said, you need to go to the Royal Brompton, you need to go back to the UK and go and get a second opinion. And it started a lifelong interest in patients' rights, patient involvement. We were kept involved, both my husband and I, are lawyers, and it seemed to sort of get people interested right from the very beginning, whether we had a view. And we always worked very closely with the cardiologists that we would do the least invasive for the best results. So we would just watch and see at each step, and they had to sort of prove to us why that would be, why any step forward would be a benefit. So with that in mind, I sort of then became a chair of a NHS trust very early on, and then I've worked in the NHS throughout, mainly on boards of trusts, and have kept my interest very much because of my son, and then got involved with the Society for Cardiothoracic Surgery, principally because I just kept making a nuisance of myself, kept saying why, and why does that work, or how does that work, and have you thought about the patient? So much so that they suggested that I came and joined them as their lay rep, and I've never looked back. They've been very warm and welcoming. And it's led on to a myriad of very interesting avenues that have opened up. And the current one is, as you said, I'm chair of the National Cardiac Surgery Clinical Trials Initiative with the British Heart Foundation, which was set up with the James Lind Alliance and Heart Research UK 2 or 3 years ago, when we had a group of patients in a room thrashing out what it was that was important to them. And the questions they wanted research to answer for them.
Say if I was in a small town in the north of England, would I have a local PPI group to liaise with, or would it have to be centrally done?
No, I don't think it has to be centrally done. And if you look at how Professor Gavin Murphy started this particular initiative, it was humble beginnings. He sat in the concourse at Leicester University Hospital and talked to patients. And actually, there is PPI all around you. If you go and sit in a coffee shop in your own hospital and you get talking with people and saying, does this sound right? You'll probably get an opinion. And it'll be an honest opinion. It may be not what you want to hear, but patients are very keen to engage. And I wouldn't be surprised you could set up a PPI group anywhere. But in practicalities nowadays, if you're wanting to get a research proposal off the ground, I would suggest you go to somewhere like the British Heart Foundation or somewhere like our group. We've got 9 groups. We are one of the largest PPI collections and networks in the country, if not the biggest, because we reach out to all the charities. We reach out to the professional societies. We know all the cardiologists and cardiac surgeons and all their professional groups within the hospitals, so we know which hospital is doing which and which favours what research trial and where the research sort of cohorts are. And we have a large collection of PPI members from the sort of Women's Institute, if I can use that phrase, and the Village magazine, through to the very professional groups, which will then go on and do maybe pharma studies, and the very technical PPI members. So we have some who are very professional at what they do, and some who just want to give their opinion, and some who you could probably capture for one question and ask them. It's a complete wonderful range of different sorts of PPI engagement that we can offer, or is out there for you to grapple with.
Yeah. So it sounds like, although it is possible to stand with a clipboard in your hospital entrance and ask questions, it sounds like the big organisations like the BHF patient and public group have got a lot of the infrastructure to get you that diverse opinion, to get you that experienced input as well. So that's a big advantage. So if I was a trainee at the start of my research journey and I'd had an idea, let's say, at what stage do you think it's best for me to reach out to a group like yourself to get some input or start engaging with patient and public groups for feedback? Do you think it should come after I've got an idea written down in a basic protocol, or should it be earlier than that when I'm forming the idea?
I think if you can do it as early as possible, I think there's real value in good teamwork, and I think there's real value in knocking an idea around a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And the earlier you can get PPI involved, I think the better experience you will have, because you will get a very rich feedback. You may not always like what's said, but it will be said with honesty, and it will be said for patient benefit, because of these people who are really committed, and also a lot of them are very good at what they do, and will ask some searching questions which may save you a few rabbit holes early on in your sort of research journey. So if you can engage even just with one or two, it doesn't have to be formal. PPI can be done in the pub. I mean, PPI can be done in a coffee shop. It can be done in a park. It's just a case of knocking an idea about with someone who possibly can have that chat with you and say, well, have you thought about this? Or if you need to do Y, why don't you think doing about that? So I think the earlier the better. It doesn't matter if you can't do it right at the early stages, but engage even if once you've got it on paper, before you've committed hours, probably.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth having someone cast an eye over it.
Okay. And from your experience, can you give any examples or common themes that you've noticed where fellows do it badly, sort of engage wrongly, just as some sort of advice so we can avoid those mistakes in the future?
Yes, um, I think it's part of a team. Not all people are team players. And I think sometimes they think that PPI is an afterthought and they're a rubber stamping group.
Mm.
And I think that can lead to tensions. It can lead to a lot of unhappiness. And you've got to remember that a lot of these PPI are ill, they are suffering. They may not have the same ability to turn up at meeting after meeting. They are doing it because they are passionate about what they're doing. So I think some consideration about what they may be going through and consideration for the person is important when doing this. Don't leave it to the last minute to rush it past someone. Don't assume they're going to say yes and they're a pushover. And if they do critically analyze it, really listen or really read what they are saying,
Yeah.
and make it simple. Distill it down to the most simple premise you can. If you take the average reading age in this country is 9, and we were always taught at law school that if you wanted to get a report through, you had to read The Sun because it wrote the shortest sentences and it had the least complicated sentences. And yet, actually, the journalism was really good. Not necessarily the content, but the journalism was to the point. And I think that stands true today. You must keep it very simple, distill it down, and make sure you absolutely nail the plain language summary. And that you can usually do with PPI members. So engage them, think about them, and think beyond. Also, think beyond them being patients. I think often clinicians lose sight of the fact that these individuals not only do it because they're passionate, but they also have sometimes really interesting work histories behind them who could be immensely helpful, be it in data science, IT, managing boards, dealing with people, HR. Don't overlook that wealth of information that's behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you get out of it as much as you're putting into it. So if you go into it with an open mind and willing to take feedback positively, then you can really get some wonderful insights. Whereas if you see it as a tick boxing exercise, then it's bad for both sides, isn't it?
Well, and you won't get funding. You won't get funding. That's absolutely clear. And that's something that, if Gavin were on this call, he will tell you, on this podcast, he would tell you that unless you take the PPI all the way through on your research journey through to the funding application, you will not get the funding because funders are really focused on PPI engagement and not just one or two. They want the bigger groups.
I mean, can you speak a bit more to that in terms of what you've seen has been the request from funders for how much engagement and what they consider to be meaningful engagement with PPI groups?
Yeah, so I've seen proposals rejected because there have only been 6 PPI members. It's gone to application, but when they have probed deeply, they've asked for further particulars as to why, what PPI involvement meant, and it sort of transpired there were 6 people involved. They've gone back and said, go back to your desk and start again, or go back to your laptop. What it means, or certainly how we see it, is we've done things like SurveyMonkey, we've done Bcast, we've done mood boards on our screen. So we've asked people to click what words reflect how they're feeling about particular questions or particular issues. We've asked them to put word jumbles in order. Does it make them feel happy, secure, nervous, uncertain? What order do you put those words? We've done webinars, and we've had some with 30 members. We've had some with 70 PPI members. We've linked in with charities, so that we've got their membership to come in with us too. And we've made a very conscious effort to keep surveys open because not everybody wants to sit on a webinar. Well, not everybody can sit on a webinar, but they're very happy to fill in a survey for 2 weeks or so after an event. And indeed, we've tried to record events, so if people want to listen to it last thing at night or whenever it suits them, they can at least hear the conversation that's been going on and the concerns of those who've been attached to the webinar, and then add their thoughts on the survey afterwards. And it's been, on the whole, pretty successful. It's always a challenge. You're trying to reach people who may be in a socio-economic group who don't all have laptops. So you have to try and be ingenious as to how to get that connection. And I don't think we're quite there yet, but we're working on it. And we're engaging with as many charities and community groups as we possibly can to get the feedback that we need.
So if there are some fellows listening to this who feel suitably inspired to go out and get that sort of engagement with a PPI group for the research work that they're putting together, how would they practically go about doing that? Who should they get in touch with?
Well, they can get in touch with me through the National Cardiac Surgery Clinical Trials Initiative under the British Heart Foundation website. And I can probably send you the link, or if you have a website, I can put it on your website. But I think, yes, I would be delighted. This is what we're here for. We are ready to lap up any proposal that's coming our way. If that's not your thing and you don't want to get in touch with us, then I would look at your professional society. I'd talk to your colleagues. I'd talk to your mentors. All of them will have an idea as to how to get into PPI. And as I say, just remember, PPI is on every corner. It's in every coffee shop. You just have to ask.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more interesting things, is that there's not a clear pathway through which that relationship has to work. It's much more bespoke to whatever research work you're putting together. So it really is as much or as little as you want to make of it. So that's
Yeah.
sometimes a little bit of the intimidating aspect for a fellow who hasn't engaged in research before, because there is no roadmap. If there's a clear tick box that you have to work through, at least there's some guidance, but sometimes it's lacking. So I think knowing that you should reach out and make this conversation and plan together, I think takes a lot of weight off the fellow's shoulders, that it's not all on them to have a clear idea from the very start.
Oh, I don't think so. No. I think PPI, when it's done well, is a team effort. We're here to help you. As I said, you may not always like what we say, and you may think, oh, blow, got to go back to the beginning again. I'm down down the snake whilst I thought I was climbing up the ladder. But it's meant with a real heart and with a real intention to help. And I think there are some very good tools. The National Institute of Health Research website's a very good place to get started if you want to understand PPI. And I hope you will come to us, our initiative, because we will do our very best to guide you. Even if we can't help you, we will try and guide you in the right direction. And have a look at the 9 groups that we are running at the moment, and we are always looking out for new ideas and things that we can help with. And whilst I say PPI is in a coffee shop, to get you through the formal scenario, you need to make sure that you've engaged, and you need to be able to document that you've engaged. So think about how you're going to do it, who you've done it with, in the sense, and what they said, because the more people you can engage with, the stronger your case will be to get it through for funding. I can't stress that more strongly enough. But we're here to help, and that's what we'd love to do.
So I'll put all the links to all those groups that you mentioned and the NIHR group in the show notes, so anyone can access that. And so if I can ask you for one final piece of advice for a fellow who is at the early stages of their research, wanting to engage with PPI groups and really take something meaningful from it, what would you tell them?
I would say be bold. My favourite phrase I got from the NHS many years ago was seek forgiveness and not permission. So be bold, reach out. You might get, don't be afraid of a knockback if you don't get the right answer. Just keep on going. If you come to us, we will do the best we can to help you. But if you think your idea is a good one, don't ever give up, because that is the most important thing. It's the reason why you do research, isn't it? So keep on going. And I hope we can build a strong and lasting relationship with whoever has the good research ideas, so that we can work as a team to deliver it. Don't forget us, and don't leave us on the sidelines. We can get very bad and cross and grumpy. But we're really nice, all of us.
I think on that note, that's a perfect note to end it on. So once again, Ms. Murray, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And as said, we'll leave all the links to everything we've discussed at the bottom. So thanks very much again.
Thank you. Take care.
Next time on the podcast.
So I feel it's very evident when the fellow or PhD students are on their own, with no backup, with no support, to ones that have all that kind of support.
I'm pleased today to be joined by Dr. Mays Jawad. Dr. Jawad, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I'm currently employed by Barts Health, but I work in the joint clinical, joint research management office. So that's both Barts Health and Queen Mary. I'm a research governance operations manager. I've been in this post for 3.5 years, I think. But before that, I've been in other research manager posts, from Guy's and St. Thomas, Moorfields, I was a trial manager at UCL. And before that, I had an academic life. So I was an academic and did my PhD in genetics and postdoc as well, that sort of thing.